Hello on the Rockers. Oh, I see. There's a lot of applause happening. I love it. On the Rockers, on this episode, we deep dive into the world of sports with Brock McGillis, the first openly gay men's professional hockey player, hot on his Shiftmakers Tour, 100 teams in 100 days. And we welcome my co-host, leading Pride House and Out Athletes Fund, Michael Ferrera. With me, your sassy host with the sassy most, who could never play sports ever. Wah, wah. Raise a glass. It's on the rocks.
Life is a banquet, and most poor suckers are starving to death.
I'd like to propose a toast.
This is On the Rocks with Alexander, where I drink with your favorite celebrities as we talk about fashion, entertainment, pop culture, reality TV, and, well, that's about it. So pop a cork, lean back, and raise a glass to On the Rocks.
Fasten your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy night. Now,
Lord have mercy. Buttons and bows and pantyhose. On the Rocks podcast, a place where we're too glam to give a damn. Okay, sports. I was on the basketball team in school. I was always on the bench. One day I actually had to go on, and I made a basket for the wrong team. Then I was in football, and, well, that didn't go well. I'm just going to stop it right there. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at On The Rocks On Air, and on Facebook, On The Rocks Radio Show. Send me an email. Book me for a pride, wedding, funeral, quinceañera, bris. I don't care. I'll show up. Info at ontherocksradioshow.com. Send us your comments, your guest requests, and your guest questions. The show's presented by Straw Hut Media. You can watch and or listen to our now over 391 episodes for free at ontherocksradioshow.com. You can watch us on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, on the Outlet.tv app, Facebook Watch, on GED Magazine, and I Love Gay LGBTQ. Streaming with Pride on SVTV and on Channel 31 on the East Coast. We proudly tape at UBN Go Studios, your one-stop place for podcasting. All right, let's get the show on the road. Returning to On the Rocks, not talking about theater, remarkably, Michael Ferrera has over 20 years' experience working in the LGBTQ plus nonprofit community. Having attended the Paris Summer Olympics, he is currently spearheading a new organization, Out Athlete Fund, that will help support LGBTQ plus elite athletes as they train for collegiate, national, and international competitions while providing a safe and inclusive space for the athletes and fans to gather and experience those competitions live. He will also be leading big news Pride House at the Los Angeles Olympics in 2028. Please welcome Michael Ferrera. That was a mouthful.
That was.
That's not the first time you heard
that. You did well.
Yeah, that's not the first time I heard that one either. But I have to say, I know you went to Paris, and how exciting. I mean, you got to rub elbows with so many athletes. Steven Schwartz was there, and you're just like, oh, hi, here I am. All of this positive energy. We know this last Olympics had the record number of out athletes ever. How do you balance that kind of energy? You come back to the States, and now we're going through what we're going through. How are you going to carry that energy into the next Olympics when we have to wait all these years when what we're going through in our first couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some respects as a nonprofit person, you're sort of like, okay, well, this is providing energy for our mission. Because I think especially young people who haven't necessarily had to fight the fight, that they've experienced a world with marriage equality and our rights established and so forth. Now they're under attack, especially our trans community. But we're all under attack. The whole the whole acronym is under attack. And, so this is an opportunity to do something positive. And really, I sort of think that sports is the last bastion of the stuff that we've been fighting against for our whole lives, And I think if we can get in there and we can create DEI, sorry, it's not a dirty word, then we can change the lives of all LGBTQ plus people. Because really, that's one of the big boys club kind of places where a lot of young gay people are still afraid to be themselves, and you hear their stories all the time. And so I'm excited to be talking to our guests today about those issues. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing negative about Pride House. It's for everybody. It's a place where the athletes can come and feel at home. It's a place where the fans can come and feel at home and actually enjoy and party around sports. And I think that one of the biggest myths about the LGBTQ plus community is that we don't have sports fans. I mean, that's a huge myth.
Tell that to West Hollywood this last Super Bowl Sunday.
I know, right? Yeah, 800 people at a Super Bowl, big gay Super Bowl party, and and that was a fundraiser for us, but it's a party that's been going on for years. So yeah, there's no lack of of fans in the LGBTQ plus community for all sports.
And I think our younger generation, they're not so hooked up on masculine versus feminine themes. And, you know, when you're a boy, you have to play sports because that's what masculine people do.
Yeah.
Now that's all over the place. So I think our younger generation is going to save us all.
And frankly, you know, like we keep reminding ourselves that, frankly, most of the out athletes are women. You know, they do tend to come out more, and there's more avenues for them to be accepted and welcomed and be together in safe environments for them. And so, you know, we have to make sure that we're always, you know, keeping a mindset that those are the majority of the out athletes, and now we're working on making sure that that happens with men too.
Thank you, lesbians. Sponsored by U-Haul. Just kidding. We love our lesbians. All right, so let's talk to somebody who's fighting the fight, literally day after day after day. Brock McGillis, the first openly gay men's professional hockey player, is hot on his Shiftmakers Tour, a groundbreaking initiative tackling racism, homophobia, and sexism in hockey by inspiring young athletes to foster inclusive environments where everyone belongs. He has received accolades like the Hockey News 100 Most Influential People in Hockey and Queerty's Pride 50. He shared the stage with Richard Branson and Billy Porter at the New York City World Pride, and his hugely successful 100-team tour across Canada proved that real change is possible, and now he has brought his mission to the U.S. for the first time. Please welcome Brock McGillis.
Hi.
How's that for you?
That was pretty good. Can I tell you something, though, about the Billy Porter, Richard Branson thing?
Oh, was it a threesome and not a stage performance?
Oh, I
You don't even know what to say. You're just like shocked right now.
No,
Did I nail it? Did you nail it?
No, he's ready to say something.
Oh yeah. I'd hit daddy for the money. I mean, no, but so. Oh yeah, now who's speechless?
That's not what we expected.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't happen to you often, does it?
I'm in a glad water for this.
So, I got a call that morning from some group, like a marketing company. They're like, hey, can you come down and do a photo shoot, Richard Branson? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I go down, we do this little photo shoot, and he has this little bus and whatever. Then they hand me a mic, and they're like, here, you're up. I'm like, excuse me? And there's like 3,000 people on the street. I'm hungover. It's like 130 degrees in New York at the end of June, right? And I'm sweating. I'm up there, and I just bullshitted like some hockey speech like I was a coach. Then I'm sitting in, they had a little area for us. I'm sitting in there, and the people running it go, yeah, it's a shame I was here. I used to do a show at Drag Race, so I was here filming all week. They're like, yeah, it's a shame you weren't in town Thursday. We would have had you speaking at the 50th anniversary of Stonewall.
Oh my God.
With Cher and Lady Gaga. I'm like, so you actually triggered me by bringing that
I'm
up.
a Cher.
Yeah, I couldn't. Like, imagine I could have met Cher. There's a million people at that event. And
Just so you know, we hung out with Cher at the reopening of the Abbey. Sorry.
I'm leaving.
Well, you were late. Might as well leave early. Oh!
Listen. I'm in Hollywood, and
You're in Hollywood
I was
time.
told you don't show up on time. Also, I'm on gay time always, so
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Well, then you were actually early with put those two things together, yeah.
Exactly. I would have been here tomorrow.
All right, before we get to all things rainbow, I want to talk about growing up. Were you always a jock kid? How did you get into hockey to begin with?
Well, I'm Canadian, so they...
It's either that or raised maple.
Poor women in Canada, because like children are born with skates on their feet, and that's got to be painful. But no, like from a very young age, we start playing hockey, and it's just ingrained. It is Canadiana. I know you think we're going to become, or some people think we're going to become the 51st state. We're not.
No.
And
I was going to ask you if you have a guest room for me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And my partner and I can marry some people and bring them over. We need more liberals. Canada. But no. We're just like, it's ingrained in our culture, and I'm from about 4 hours north of Toronto, which means I grew up in extreme cold, and all you did was play hockey. Like it's winter 10 months of the year, and I lived down the street from an arena, and every day after school I go to the rink hoping to get on the ice, and on weekends my parents would drop off all my meals there, and I got pretty good at the sport, and then you start getting attention for it, and I love attention. Like it's my favorite thing in the world. So
but was it a passion for you?
It was. From a very young age, I knew, just go. It wasn't, okay, your team's practicing these days. It was like, I'm going to the rink hoping nobody's on, so I can go on. And I lived there. I just loved it. And it fueled my soul.
Did you get into sports as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I played everything because I grew up in a Boston sports family.
Yeah.
So, like, you played everything. You played the big four. You played baseball, hockey, basketball, and football. I was horrible at basketball, but like, yeah, I understand. My parents put skates on me, and because I was telling Brock before we started that my maternal grandparents are from Canada, so they sort of passed that on. Like, so I was in skates by 3-4 years old. Yeah,
It's awesome.
yeah.
Now, through your childhood, your hometown, your family, what did you learn early on as a kid that you still subscribe to this day, like life lessons?
Wow. Interesting. So from hockey, I learned that first, throughout my career, I was a really good player, but I've been cut at different times. So you learn how to deal with adversity. And what I've really learned is that no is temporary. And that if you want something, keep pushing for it, and eventually you will achieve it, even if you don't on the first try. Because the people who made it over me at different times, I made it way further than they did. And my dad always had a saying that the table's round. And if you do good things for people, they might not do good things for you, but eventually somebody will.
I love that.
Yeah, and so the table's round. And if you just live by that philosophy, good things are going to happen for you.
Someday you'll meet Cher. You've talked in
I've
other
noticed.
interviews.
Hold on, though. I've noticed you haven't said Gaga once. Just share. No comment.
Oh,
wow, the Gaga shade.
I met Gaga at the Abbey.
Yeah. How about one of her dancers? That's Gaga adjacent.
You are one of her dancers.
No, doesn't look like I'm one of her dancers. Abracadabra, that's too much magic for me. You said in other interviews that you realized, like when you were 7 or 8, that maybe your sexuality was not the same as the other boys.
Oh yeah, I knew I was gay when I was 6. The first time
wow.
I still haven't figured out what movie it was, but my parents were watching a movie and there's a gay character, and I said, "What if I'm gay?" They said, "If you're gay, you're gay. You're Brock. We love you." And that.
Oh, no kidding.
I'm very fortunate that I have that, and it's a ton of privilege to have a family that's so inclusive and supportive. But growing up, yeah, in hockey, I mean, all the guys talked about in the locker room were girls, video games, partying, and sports, and like music, as long as it's like now rapper country. But like, I realized I didn't resonate with it. Like, I wasn't gay. I mean, I wasn't straight. I knew I wasn't straight, but I adhered to it. I became one of those bros because I felt like I had to. It was survival.
You spent your entire professional hockey career in the closet.
It was fun.
But on top of that, you were dealing with injury after injury. You were dealing with not being close to your family because you were over in Europe. You were dealing with drinking and all this kind of stuff. How did you get through that whole period of your life?
I honestly don't know.
I mean, it got pretty dark.
Oh, I was, I don't want to trigger anyone, but I was self-harming. I was trying, on a number of occasions, I tried to die by suicide. I struggled immensely. From 18 to 23, I drank every single day to numb it, to not have to think about it. And it derailed my career. I was supposed to be, like, top of the top, and then all of a sudden I'm playing in Europe. And I'm like, and I actually then said, you need to figure this out. Because it was so dark, and I just sat myself down one day and I was watching my career derail. I was like, you're gonna end up dead.
Self-sabotage and
Totally.
and your body was playing against you as well.
I had season-ending injuries every year from the age of 15 until I retired in my late 20s into early 30s, and it was just, I was a train wreck. I wasn't sleeping. I was drinking. I was self-harming. I was depressed. I'd go home to my billet's house and like, people thought I had this cool life. I'm playing even in junior, like I'm playing the top junior league in the world, and I'm like 17 years old, and I'm getting my friends into clubs VIP, and owners are coming up giving us trays of shots, and like we're kids. Yeah. And I'd be walking through malls signing autographs, and they didn't know I'd go home at night and I'd cry. Yeah. I hated myself. I was trying to die, and nobody knew. Not a soul knew. But when I decided I need to figure it out, I went, instead of going to Sudbury, I went to Toronto, and I went on a date with a guy. And I just went, yep, you're gay.
And that was your first kind of real relationship. You were with him for what, like 3 years?
I was with him for 3 years without a soul knowing, not a friend, family member, nobody. And we actually had a fake name and alias for his friends, so they couldn't find me on social media and figure out I was a professional athlete and potentially help me and jeopardize my career. I have a crazy story about him, though.
Okay, so I really want to know about this, because how can you build a good relationship when you're not even being true to yourself?
Oh, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, it was fucked up. Like, you can't. Like, that's not sustainable.
I mean, that's taking role play to the extreme.
Oh, yeah. Like, he literally never got to meet anyone in my life in 3 years.
And he was okay with that?
We loved each other.
Yeah.
We were young, we were stupid, and we loved each other. And you just, like, obviously he wasn't happy about it and he wanted to meet everyone. But the reason we broke up was because I had a couple of years where I was injured and missed the whole season. I had some surgeries and missed a few years, and I was going back to play. And he said, okay, well, what's going to happen? I said, well, I'm going to have to go on some dates with girls. Like, I just, like, I need to. I have no choice. And he's like, I can't do this. And I went, I get it. But I also, like, this is my life. And that was sort of the end. It was really sad. And we actually didn't talk for 10 years from that point on.
Wow.
But in 2019, I was here filming. I had a show with Wild Presents Plus. And we were here filming, and it was the week I went to New York and
didn't meet Cher, yeah.
And didn't meet Cher. But one morning I was walking across Santa Monica to go to the gym at like 7 a.m, and we bumped into each other in the middle of the intersection.
What are the chances of that?
wow.
Because you were with him in Toronto.
In Toronto, we hadn't
Years.
spoken or seen each other in over 10 years. We hadn't anything, and he moved here. He's American, but he was going to school in Toronto. And he moved here for work, and we just bumped into each other. It was like seeing a ghost.
Wow.
It was the wildest thing ever. And we just went over the side, like got off the street because I didn't want to get hit by a car. And we were just like, wow. And I was like, can we like grab coffee or hang out? And he was married at the time, and his husband wasn't cool with it. So we didn't. But they aren't married anymore, and we've actually since become friends. I'm meeting him for dinner tonight.
That's amazing. I think that's an amazing story.
What a great story, because, I mean, I love that we just ended that little part at that happy news, because I think there's such an opportunity for healing.
Yeah.
But I'm just so struck by your story because, you know, look at how much more so many of us have to do in order to just get to the starting line.
It's
right?
fucking exhausting.
You know, it's exhausting. Yeah, and people don't understand the conversations about sports nowadays, especially with trans athletes, but all of us is like, you have to do so much more just to get to the starting line. So much more.
And especially in men's team sports. Like trans women, for sure, 100%. That's like a whole different level of what they're going through. But like as gay men, like we are so far behind. And we can't, in men's team sport in particular, we like, you know, we're starting 50 feet behind everyone else.
Sure.
And if you come out, you risk losing it all. That's why there's no gay athletes. Like, there's so few in men's team sport because, like, do you risk your whole identity is wrapped up in your sport from the age of, like, I was Brock McGillis hockey player from the age of 8. You know, that's all people talk to me about. So do I risk losing that?
Yeah. Because that step means now you're not Brock the hockey player, now you're Brock the gay guy.
The gay. In every single
Gay.
interview you do, every single label, you know.
Fuck, everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Now, like, that's the like, people are like, how do you feel that your identity is being gay? I'm like, well, you're straight and the whole world's built for you, so technically yours is too. But yeah, it is kind of like I am. I'm now the gay guy, and which is weird. But it's like you'd be the gay guy, and it's not even like I wouldn't mind like the media and the this and the that, because that ended up coming anyway, and frankly I love it. I'm not gonna lie to you.
It's attention, right?
Yeah, I love attention. I'm a narcissist and I'm very self-aware, but I think the hardest part was the locker room. Like, I can't be in there. They're not going to want me. Teams aren't going to want that distraction. They're not going to sign me. I'm going to lose opportunities to play. I'm going to jeopardize my career, something I've been working towards since I was 6, to be gay. I was like, can't.
And that is awkward. You know, we've all been in situations with straight guys that know our identity, and it's like, we're not looking at you, but then we on purpose so not look at you just to make the point that we end up coming across weird, and it's just a weird situation.
Oh, and sports, like guys' sports locker rooms are the gayest place in the world. Like
because they're slapping each other's ass, they're walking around naked.
Like hockey locker
giving you
rooms
handies,
are
like-
next level. It's like the gayest place I've ever been in my life. But it's true. I would intentionally look away and not want anyone to think I was checking them out.
It's so weird.
So you hide it, yet they're doing the like some stuff I won't say, but
Right.
like some weird shit that like
Yeah.
And hazing stuff. All
oh
of that.
yeah, like peeing on each other and like
Yeah.
different, and I'm like, this is the gayest place I've ever been in my life.
Wednesday at the Bullet Bar.
Oh yeah, but you hide
Straight
it.
guys are actually, I think, are more obsessed with penises than we are.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah. I think so, absolutely.
I think that if it wasn't a faux pas in those hypermasculine spaces, most straight guys would be gay.
I mean, we look at Grecian times and we look at their sports stuff. I mean, it was very, very gay. It was a sign of honor to service another person.
But I even look at so I was when I was on the tour in Canada, I was out one night. My road manager on the tour is a professional baseball player. And he is in the minors, so he still needed an off-season job, and he came on the road with me. And we met up with one of his teammates. And we're sitting there, and we're having drinks. And then I realized my partner was probably going to bed because different time zones. So I just FaceTimed him at the table. And they're sitting there like, oh, my girlfriend wants me to talk about my feelings and this and the other, and that's all we do, and blah, blah, blah. And like some of that stuff. And then we're sitting there, and I'm like, I call Matt. FaceTime him. He goes, hey, I'm watching a cop show. Can I call you back later? I'm like, yeah, man. And we just hung up, and they're like, what the fuck? You can do that? And I'm like, yeah. Well, like, what do you mean, yeah? They're like, oh, I'd get in so much shit if I just said, I can't. I'm like, see, if you were gay,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have this issue. So I think they all would turn gay. And also, if they realized they could have sex at a gym, they would all turn gay if it wasn't such a faux pas in those hypermasculine spaces.
Yeah.
Brock, let me ask you this. Having that first kind of real relationship and having it end the way that it did it affect your future relationships?
Yeah, I mean, it was heartbreaking. And then it took me a while I actually stopped dating because I was like, I can't do this to anyone. And I can't do this to myself.
Right.
So I would I don't know, go on a date here or there or a hookup or whatever, but I wouldn't date. It wasn't until I finally came out in my life, and I came out my private life first and came out publicly years later. But it wasn't until I was out in my private life that I actually started dating again, because I was like, I don't want to go through that. It was exhausting. It was exhausting for him. It was exhausting for me. It wasn't fair to either of us. And I couldn't handle it. So it took years before, it's probably a good, 4 or 5 years before I dated again.
Wow. And you made that decision after that relationship as well, or I don't know if it was before or after, to totally leave professional hockey. So that's like breaking up on a big time, because that was a part of your life, like you said, from 8 years old. How did you work through leaving the industry? I mean, you must have gone through another type of depression because it's a loss.
Yeah, it was a weird situation. My body wasn't happy with me. I'd had, and I think a lot of the injuries were psychosomatic. Mm-hmm. I think because of everything I was dealing with,
and being so tense and scared
all the time, not sleeping, drinking, depressed. Like there's just such a toll that the injuries just followed. And finally, I went and played university hockey, and I was having injury after injury even there, and I just said, I just got to stop. So I was about to go play. I was actually at the border in Windsor, crossing over to Detroit. I was getting my visa to go play the season. And at that point, I was out a little bit. I had some gay friends and in Toronto, and I was starting to go out, and I was more myself. And I turned the car around. And it was Canadian Thanksgiving weekend, and I just drove right back to Toronto. And I spent the weekend partying in the Village. And I just went, yep.
This is my life.
This is me, and I'm okay with this now. I think the fact that I did it sort of wasn't fully on my terms. Like I didn't have the career I was supposed to have, and I didn't have that, that 10-year NHL career that I was really supposed to have. And so there was a part of me that always said, like, what if? Yeah. But in that moment, I was like at peace, because it wasn't just the injuries that I couldn't play anymore, or it was just too much with being. It was just like, no, it all came together, and I just said, I'm done. And I was able to, on my own, decide to step away.
Wow. That's like a scene from a movie.
It is, and actually a good scene, because
Yeah,
I think
yes.
like so much
I
of the
can
time
see
the
it right
coming
now.
out story, just for some people expect like it to be this momentous occasion, but sometimes it's the quiet moments where
yourself.
you're internal, you're looking in the mirror or whatever. Like I can remember looking in the mirror and trying to say I'm gay to myself in the mirror, and those are the quiet moments where things shift, right? Yeah.
And we have so many coming outs to ourselves, to people. Like we never really stop.
To
like
family, to girlfriends that you were dating.
Oh, I set my last girlfriend up with a friend of mine. Now they're married with kids.
Oh,
That's
fantastic!
good.
Yeah, it's a full circle
I've
moment.
had girls get
right.
really angry with me. It's like, what are you talking about? Now we can go shopping. And they're like, no.
we can watch Housewives and we
Yes!
can go
Yeah,
shopping.
right.
Like this.
Yes, queen.
Right.
Okay, who would play him in a movie? Barry, what's his name? From Salt?
You better
Oh,
be
Barry
kind.
Kagan.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
From Saltburn.
Yes. Are you kidding? 100%,
As long
right?
as you can dance naked around a mansion, what's the song?
Done.
Better the dance floor.
Murder on the dance floor. Yes.
Where's the mansion? Get the mansion.
Yes.
We'll go
Well, we're in
Tell me about
Hollywood,
it.
like
Yes.
it's, on every corner.
Now, this is bittersweet, but the actual inspiration for your public coming out, you did an interview with Yahoo Sports, was a tragic event for our community. Can you talk about the inspiration of you finally going public?
Pulse?
Yeah.
So, three things kind of happened around the same time. A hockey association. Well, first I found out when I retired from playing, I ran hockey businesses. I moved back to Sudbury, and I was still immersed in hockey culture, which is wild. I'm a masochist, apparently, because I put myself right back in there. It's all I knew. And I was working with over 100 hockey players a day. And I hid it from them. And hid it for about 5 years. And then one day I got a phone call from a hockey mom, and she said, Brock, I want to set you up on a date. And I just went, oh, fuck. Like, what do I do? What do I say? How do I get out of this without her knowing I'm gay? And I said, what's her name? She said, Steve. I came to find out all my athletes knew, and I started observing their behaviors, kind of like animals in the wild, hockey players in their natural habitat. And I started to notice that anytime they'd say something homophobic, they'd apologize to me. I thought, well, maybe we're creating a shift, or maybe they just like me. I'm one of the boys. Like I go on the ice and I chirp them, which is straight bro for reading. And
What's the term?
chirp.
Chirp.
Yeah.
I'm going to start using that. Tweet, tweet, chirp, chirp.
Right. I love it. I think it's a great term.
Yeah, it's a great term.
And we go in the gym and I'll bench press all of them, and that's really the most important part of the story. If you get nothing else away from today, that's it. But maybe they just like me because I'm one of the guys. But maybe they're calling people slurs elsewhere. Until one day I wasn't there, and a sprint coach was throwing some athletes on a track, and at the end of a workout, he told them they had 10 more sprints. And a younger player looked at the sprint coach and said, "This is so gay." And an older player looked at the younger player and said, "We don't say that here. Give me 50 push-ups." And he did. And not only did he, but all my athletes started to do that anytime they said something
Oh,
homophobic.
wow, I just got goosebumps.
100
That's
athletes.
another scene from a movie. I tell you.
No,
But
right?
then took it with them everywhere they went.
That's amazing.
Before I knew it, people I didn't even know were doing push-ups when they said something homophobic. The younger player, one of his teammates one night was on FaceTime with his girlfriend. His girlfriend said, "Let's hang out." And he said, "No, I can't. I have practice." She said, "That's so gay. You never want to hang out with me." And he looked at her and said, "Give me 50 push-ups right now. We're breaking up." And they both dropped down on FaceTime, did 50 push-ups. So that happened. And then right after that season, or during that season, a hockey association wouldn't let me work with their teams. And they wouldn't give me a reason why, even though I worked with them the year before. I was volunteer coaching for them, different things. True to form, my dad saw the president of the association. He said, "Is it because Brock's gay?" President denied knowing, but the hockey mom had just told me that everyone was finding out. I guess he went home, called some coaches whose teams I was volunteering my time with, and the next day I showed up to coach a practice, and the head coach had my replacement there. Wow. He kicked me off his coaching staff the moment he found out, and 2 or 3 other teams did the exact same thing. And then right after that season was Pulse. And here's the reality for us, and here's what straight people don't necessarily understand. And every room I go into now, I'll look at whether it's an adult at a corporate gig or, teenagers or whatever, and I'll look at a straight guy and I'll be like, do you have a girlfriend or a wife? Yeah. I'm like, so if you're walking down the street holding her hand, do you worry about anything? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, do you worry that somebody's going to verbally harass you for holding her hand? Not just some random, person screaming at everyone, but for holding her hand in particular. No. What about jumped or physically assaulted? No. I said, how about killed? No. I said, well, for my community, if two men are walking down the street holding hands, or two women, or a trans person is just existing, whether we're here in LA or I live in Toronto, or you go anywhere smaller in between, they do have those risks. And so those gay bars, those nightclubs are safe spaces for us, and Pulse ripped that away from us. And it infuriated me. And right after it, a friend of mine was running a pretty big LGBTQ plus organization. And I'm not going to say which one, but about a week later, he called me. He was hosting a charity event, and he goes, Brock, you shouldn't come. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I'm on a terrorist hit list. I went, fuck off. Like, stop. As at the time, different groups were taking credit for Pulse. And he goes, Brock, they have a picture of me online. I'm a target. I said, are you going to the event? He goes, yeah, I have to. So I'm coming with you. And I've been to a lot of charity events in my life. This one was so different. They had metal detector wands at the door. Everyone was being frisked. We had undercover security and officers around us the whole night. There's a point in the night I went to the bar to grab a drink. I was looking at the front door and I was watching people get frisked, check for weapons. I start to think, is this seriously happening in Toronto, in Canada? And I was like, I got angry. I started thinking, like, when is it going to change? When is it going to evolve? When can we just live? And then I went, well, you can sit here and be pissed off, or you can do something. I went home that night and slept on it. And the next day I phoned a friend of mine who's a journalist. She actually saved my life one time. She was at the Toronto Star before she went to Yahoo, and that's why I called her. And she talked me out of dying by suicide one night when I was in the OHL. Wow. And I called her and I said, I'm coming out. And she said, are you sure? I said, I have to. And I ended up writing an article that dropped in November 2016, coming out. And those three things, plus that hockey player, was the catalyst.
Do you remember the anxiety waiting for that article to go live?
Fuck. So I was back in school. I was taking courses, and I was sitting in a first year sports business class. And I went up to the prof, and I didn't know what type of, reception this would get. And I just went, hey, I just want to let you know this is happening. It's going to drop about 10 minutes into class. And she's like, oh, okay. And we didn't think anything of it. She starts teaching her lesson or whatever. And then all of a sudden, everyone's phone's blowing up.
Wow.
The entire class. And my phone's blowing up. And then she looked around, the whole room staring at me. And she's like, we're done. Class canceled. I left, and I didn't even tell my family I was doing it. And I just started driving around the city and crying.
Wow.
And I got over 10,000 messages that day from people. And I was just like crying, laughing. Like I had such a wide array of emotion. But I was sitting there tense in class, waiting, saying it's 11, why isn't it out yet? And then it dropped at like 10 after. And I just went like, it's there now. Everyone knows. And it's a first-hand account. And it's...
Wow. So, I mean, you're saying I understand driving around crying, but what were you feeling everything? Was it fear, or was it relief, or what were the predominant feelings going on for you?
Relief. I think relief was a huge one. Joy, pride, some fear.
Yeah, of course.
Like, it was scary. Right. Like, I hadn't told friends. I still was, like, I wasn't out in the hockey world. Like, people knew, but I hadn't told anyone. And, like, and then how's this going to impact my career? So I'm still running those businesses and had aspirations of doing stuff in the sport and will this impact it? I didn't know. And then my safe space is the gym, which like for, I don't know, in Sudbury, Ontario, it's not the same as going to Equinox and WeHo, where that's a safe space for a different reason. Yeah. But I'm sitting there and I'm like in the gym and I'm sitting on a mat about to like just warm up to go work out, and people are walking up to me and talking to me about it. And then I'm about to start crying there, and I had to leave. And it was just like, I just couldn't contain any emotion. Like I just couldn't hold it in. It was just out there. And it was probably, I was 33. So, and yes, I just aged myself, but like that was 33 or like since I was 6, that's 27 years of holding this in that space. And now the whole world knows.
We know the NHL has been vocal about certain social movements, but not really queer social movements, which you've talked about in other interviews quite candidly. Somehow you managed to change this conversation around. They're one of your sponsors for the Shiftmakers Tour.
Yeah.
We need to know, especially with what we're going through the U.S., how do you change that conversation? How do you convince this sports league to start promoting a different idea?
Well, I think I found my place. I think our community at times, and a lot of marginalized groups and allies and whatnot, I think what we've done is, because of social media and because of how the toxicity of it, we've lost advocacy. We've skipped where everyone's an activist. And we need advocates and activists. We need people who could go in the room and have the conversations with people before others come in and burn it down to see if we can evolve it first. You know what I mean? Because there are rooms that we can evolve, and they need to work simultaneously. You even look at, like, before Stonewall, there was the Mattachine Society and different groups. And there's always been advocates and activism, but now we just burn everything down. And which has its place and is needed, but we need advocates and activists to work like this in cohesion as a unit. And there's been times in my life where I've been very vocal and I've been an activist. Before that, I was more of an advocate. My first form of advocacy, I was, very new. I was sort of thrust into a role. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And it was like, okay, now you're the face of gay in this sport. And it's like, I thought I was just coming out and I was going to go run hockey stuff. And then when the pandemic hit and before it, everyone's coming to me nonstop with everything, nonstop. And then it just started to weigh on me, and I became more of an activist. And I was calling stuff out, and I still do. There's still times for it. But now I've realized that, hey, I have pretty good lines of direct contact to the top of a lot of sport. I don't have to call them out. They're going to answer my calls, and we can have conversations first, and let's see where things are. And then knowing that, those people are behind me ready to pounce is powerful. So I guess in realizing that, and also I was like, what has greater good for me? I'm a cis, white, masculine presenting hockey bro who is gay. You know what I mean? I can infiltrate a room and be one of the boys. I've been doing it my whole life. And they see me as one of the guys. And if they don't, I start chirping them. And then they see me as one of the guys. And if they still don't, then we have a little push-up competition or a bench press off. And then they do for sure. So I can walk into those rooms and have conversations that not a lot of people can have. I don't need to be the person to burn it down because there's others who can do that. But I could try and create the shifts so that we don't have to burn it down. And sometimes we will. And sometimes we won't. So the league saw the impact of my work. They saw I was doing it with or without them. Like, I had sponsors saying, we're doing this. If they don't want to be involved, they don't have to. I think there's a lot of good people at the league. I think they've made some, as a league, they've made some poor decisions. I think that society and corporate culture is trying to navigate a tightrope instead of recognizing some things. And I've actually consulted for some corporates where it's like, if you sit in your core values and you don't waver from them, you're going to be fine. You know, like, look at Bud Light. Mm-hmm. Bud Light didn't go wrong by partnering with Dylan. Bud Light went wrong where, okay, these are our core values. We're inclusive. We welcome the trans community. We support prides. So you know that there's going to be a really wise friend said to me one time, 10% of people love you unconditionally, 10% hate you unconditionally, and there's 80% in the middle. You know that 10% is going to pull away if you partner with Dylan. That's inevitable. But then, okay, maybe 15% do, because there's that middle ground where they're hearing disinformation and misinformation on the internet. Then you have the 10%, then who are going to support you because you partnered with Dylan, and probably more than that as allies and whatnot. Well, as soon as they pulled away from Dylan, now they lost the 10% who hated them for partnering with her, and now you lost the other side. You've lost, and then the allies on either who are somewhere in the middle are split as well. Mm-hmm. So
and their own employees, by the way, too.
Boom.
Yeah.
So now you've lost everybody. And this is what I've had to try to explain to the NHL and show them their own demographics at times and go, this is what your demos are in America. They skew young, they skew progressive, they skew major urban center. It's diverse. They want this stuff. You need to lean in harder. You know, those people that are anti this, they're watching football. And you're not getting them away from football. That's America's pastime now, like, respectfully, baseball. It's America's pastime. It just is. So you're not going to get that audience. You can get this audience, though. And even in the rooms, like when I'm working with players, like I have stats and data that back up and like kids, teenagers are like, we want more of this. And seeing that, it's like, hey, look. And they're like, yep. So I have the league, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Ottawa Senators, the Calgary Flames in the U.S., the Chicago Blackhawks are a massive partner of mine, like huge and so supportive. The Anaheim Ducks and the Seattle Kraken this year, and I'm talking to some others about joining next year in the U.S. As we continue to do these tours.
It's amazing. I want to appreciate so much how the sophistication of what you just explained between advocacy and activism. And I think that's missing a lot today, like you said, because people just are going right to the and that advocacy paves the road. And I remember when I was younger, and incrementalism, which I think we used to call advocacy, bothered me because I just wanted to go right to it. But like incrementalism won marriage equality. Incrementalism wins a lot of things because as you appreciate, you have to win over the 51%. You have to get to 51% before you win.
I'll tell you a story. So I was speaking at a university last year, and it was supposed to be for the athletic department, but then they opened it up to the entire school, and there's about 4,000 people there. And there were protesters. I was like, this is awesome. I loved it. They were actually really respectful until the Q&A. And then they started coming at me. Like, one guy said, if we keep going like this, there won't be men or women. And I'm like, are you a man? He goes, yeah. I'm like, so am I. It's not that deep. And then, like another guy started talking about trans youth. And he's like coming at me about trans youth. And I'm like, all right, well, let's take a step back here. And I said, let's talk about stats and facts. Reuters did a study in 2021 that found there was approximately 40,000 kids diagnosed with gender dysphoria in America out of the millions of children in the entire country. Of that 40,000, approximately 4,000 were deemed more extreme cases that therapy wasn't enough. So that's a small percentage of that 40,000, and they were put on hormone therapy. Of that 4,000, 200 were deemed very extreme cases, life and death situations where they had top surgery, 12 to 17-year-olds. I said, so you're protesting, and this was in Canada. I said, we're a 10th of their population. So you're protesting 20 kids? 20 kids having top surgery. That's what you're worried about? So, but then I did some digging. And I found that that same year in America, over 275,000 cisgender kids in the same age demographic had elective cosmetic plastic surgery.
Wow.
So you're protesting 200, but 275,000 are having boob jobs, nose jobs, BBLs, ear jobs, which I didn't know was a thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
only in LA.
Yeah, here you are.
But, and I'm like, what are we talking about? So in that moment, though, when they kept coming at me with these tinfoil hat fears and bullshit, the athletes were in the room. And my road manager the year before was sitting by the hockey players. And it got to the point that the hockey bros were talking to each other. They're like, well, these idiots just shut the fuck up. Advocacy in that moment, if I go at them harsh and I go at them with the same energy that they're coming at me, it's that whole room's going to be divisive. It's going to be filled with, we don't know where to go. We're going to tune it all out because there's barriers to communication. I was talking to those people knowing full well that 10%, those people protesting me, fighting me, combating me on a whole wide array of issues, they weren't going to change their opinions, and that's okay. The 80% that was in the room now started critically thinking. And they went, do I want to align myself with that tinfoil hat guy, or do I want to align myself with Brock? And all of a sudden, all the athletes are coming up to me, thanking me and apologizing to me for those people. So in that moment, advocacy worked. If I tried to burn it down in that moment, that room's going to be split, so divided, nobody's going to know what to think. So I figured out my role was, hey, I can stay calm and rational in those situations. There's times I can burn it down. I know how. But I have a way of talking to those people and staying patient with them, knowing full well that I'm talking to everyone else. And that there's power in that. And that changes things because now we have allies. And that, they're like, no, it's 20 kids. Like, what are we talking about? They're acting like every kid's becoming trans or furry or this or that. And it's like, no, it's not. And they're extreme situations and they're working with doctors, and so it's advocacy has a really big place in my mind. And from there, we can have the activists when needed come and really push the issue.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about the energy that is needed to visit 100 teams in 100 days. Because we all know that we all want to do our part. We all want to be advocates. We all want to be activists. But when it comes to reality, when you're having such a busy schedule, I call it activism fatigue, where it's like, and you know this very well, when you're just like, okay, every day I have this event, I got to do this, and you've got to be on, right? And then you're traveling on top of all of that. Do you ever just get so fatigued, you're like, do I have to talk about gay issues one more time? How do you keep your physical and mental health going as well?
I've made a massive sacrifice for the community where I have bags under my eyes. and the entire community owes me for that.
They're Louis Vuittons.
Go fund me.
Yeah.
You're fucking welcome. So it's more than 100. Like, it was 100 and 100 across Canada. I actually went to 140 in 85 days.
Oh my God.
Coast to coast. Over 27 cities. And then took 3 days off and came to the US and started doing it here. And year one here is right now. And my work has evolved to the point where it's not just for LGBTQ plus people. Like, it's really become, I've done something recently. I share that story because that story that day about the hockey player having the other hockey player do push-ups, he's a shift maker. That created a shift in 100 hockey players where they started doing that, but it created a shift in me. Because of him, I realized the impact I could have. Because of him, he's part of the catalyst of me coming out. Because of him, I do the work I do now. Because of him, thousands of people have come to me over the years who have been struggling, in some cases in life and death situations, and not even just LGBTQ plus related things. And I've been able to get them support. That guy that day, that small little action had a ripple effect that saved lives. And this is what I try and teach people, whether I'm in a corporate gig or kids, that you can do something really small. Pick the topic. I don't care what it is: racism, homophobia, misogyny, ableism, mental health, bullying, addiction, the environment. Whatever you're passionate about, you can create a small shift for, and that shift will change the world. And I teach them how. And it's humanized issues. When you put a face on it, it becomes more real. The environment we create. And I think most people want to be good people, whether they are or not, but they want to be, and they think they are. And I teach them, especially young people, like with adults, it's more about stats and facts and knowing reality versus not. But also, and in particular with teenagers and young adults, it's our language. And the easiest way to ensure that, you're not hurting somebody is through your words. So I talk about 5 different types of language: direct language, which is bullying; indirect language; laughter is a form of language. And this happens even in corporate culture. I'm like, why do you laugh? But more in the locker room, why do you laugh when somebody is bullying a teammate or says something really offensive? And traditionally, it's to fit in. Because I'm like, what happens if you didn't laugh? Well, you'd be the odd person out. You'd be the next person targeted. I'm like, what if nobody laughed? They're like, it would stop. I'm like, so by not laughing, you can shift your entire culture. I said, but let's break this down even further. You laugh at things you don't find funny, and in sports, we call ourselves a family or brothers or sisters, some analogy like that. You're laughing at things you don't find funny because you're afraid your family is going to bully you. That's fucked up.
Yeah, it sure is.
And then I go into body language as a form of language and silence. And I tell them a story. Last year, I was the first year on the tour, a 13-year-old boy comes up to me in tears. I'm like, what's wrong, man? He goes, Brock, I'm Jewish, and last weekend, some of my teammates went to my hotel room and drew swastikas on my hotel mirror. And he's like, you inspired me to tell them how it made me feel. I said, you want to talk to them? He's like, yeah. I said, all right. So the session was done at that point. Everyone was gone. I grabbed the coach. I said, I'm coming to your next practice. So I worked with the player and his mom and then went back in with the team. And he got to share. He got to humanize the impact of that moment on him. But I got to reinforce language and in particular silence, because 3 players did it, but another 7 stood around and watched. And but so we're sitting there and I'm like, about a month and a half ago, I said something either during the laughter or the silence about being brave. And it's transformed everything I do, because the language is great. But as athletes, we call ourselves gladiators, where we, in hockey, we battle in the corner, we fight in front of the net, we take a hit to make a play, we block shots, we're tough, we're courageous, we're brave. Athletes are tough, we're brave. I'm like, is that brave if you're laughing? And then when we got to this point, I'm like, it's easy to stay quiet. It's safe to stay quiet. You're not the next person targeted if you stay quiet, but is that brave? Is that the integrity, the courage you all say you have as athletes? And then the third way we create a shift is breaking conformity. I can pick out a hockey player anywhere I go. They dress the same, talk the same, walk the same. I'm like, tell me something you typically wouldn't tell a teammate about you. I'm like, because you're talking about 4 things: women, video games, partying, sports, music, as long as it's rap or country. And women conform a little differently, but similarly. I'm like, tell me something you wouldn't typically tell a teammate. And I used to get surface level answers. I love cooking. I make grilled cheese. Cool. Nobody gives a shit. Like, genuinely. And I'm like, you have 2 answers in your head right now. I said, you have the surface level bullshit one, and you have the brave one. You'll know which one you gave me, and so will I. They're sharing things. I've had 6 players stand up in front of their teammates in the last month and a half and say, I tried to die by suicide this year. Oh. But now coaches know, now parents are finding out, now we're able to get them support. I've had one player stood up in tears and goes, he's a top player in his age group across the country. And he goes, you guys make fun of me to the point that I feel like I have no friends. I'm going to quit the sport. I had 2 Indigenous players in the room. One stood up and said, I pretend I'm okay with the jokes. I hate them. Another kid, he was on a different team, but in the same room, goes, I feel the exact same way. And then about 2 weeks later, a black kid said the exact same thing. we're eating each other alive. And if the cis straight white kids are doing it to each other, what hope is there for the marginalized kid in sport? You know what I mean? If they're all eating each other alive. So this work has transformed beyond just LGBTQ+, which has made it even more exhausting. Like we used to joke that I had a coach come up to me and say, I feel like it's like an episode of Ted Lasso. Like you talk to the kids, you share your story and it's emotional, and then you teach them a lesson and then they share, and then I see how they treat each other and they treat each other a lot better. But now there's like, because they're sharing deeper and more powerful, it's like Ted Lasso meets Euphoria. And it's like I had that pro baseball player. And
2 popular shows, by the way.
Yeah, right.
phenomenal shows.
Yeah.
But like it's emotionally draining, and I'm doing like every single
That's what I mean.
day.
You take all of this energy on. What do you do to release it, to take a breath of fresh air and keep your sanity?
I'm at the gym every day. I'm meditating twice a day. When the tours are done, I'm in therapy nonstop. Do you know that your therapist can't see you out of, like, in Canada, out of province? So I can't even do like virtual sessions.
You can't do a
What?
Zoom or something?
It's illegal for them. Only certain provinces he can see me, and he can't see me while I'm in the States.
Wow.
And I'm like, fuck.
My therapist will only do Zoom because I get a little touchy-feely.
Yeah, well,
But it's true, you can't do it across state lines either, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's, yeah.
yeah.
I did not know that.
So I was like, shit. So I can't even do like talk to a therapist right now. But like my road manager, he sat me down. He's like, you need to talk to people because the stuff you're taking on, especially this year,
Yes.
like he would sit in the corner and cry. And he's this macho professional athlete and he's sobbing. And I'm like consoling these kids. Like I had a player tell me about his little brother dying and finding him. And he's telling his teammates who are friends with this kid. And I'm like, and I have no idea what they're going to say, right? Like I'm up there unsure, and then on the spot have to a girl last night looks at me and goes, she's on a team of predominantly boys, and she in front of her teammates goes, I feel like my teammates hate me because they think I suck and I don't belong on the team. And she's in tears. And I have to validate her and make her feel good, and also kind of call them out without calling them out, and show them the impact they're having on their teammate. And
In the moment.
not knowing what they're going to say, it's improv.
Yeah.
I'm improving. I'm a comedian. I'm serious. I'm dad. I'm this. I'm that to all these kids, young adults across North America. And it's like literally I sleep on tour. I got a little more last night, but typically about 3.5, 4 hours a night for about 5-6 months at a time. I go to the gym twice a day just to like release something, and it's hard. It's so difficult, and it's worth it because I'm seeing the impact and kids' lives are being saved. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I try not to think about it.
There needs to be more of you so that you're not carrying that whole burden. I'm blown away, really, that I want to say, like, I'm so happy that you're talking about getting self-care. But people don't understand what an impact it has on people that are carrying the weight, you know, and I really appreciate you, and I thank you, because it is more important that it's not just LGBTQ+. But you also can't be the expert on everybody's experience. And I hear what you're saying, that you're not. You know, you're not claiming that you're the expert on everybody's experience. It's a human experience that you're bringing with you.
What I've done is I've socially re-engineered the way they look at toughness. That it's tough to share, that it's brave to share, and then create a psychologically safe space where they can. Mm-hmm. And from there, I can provide resources and tools. Like I've had people come to me with sexual assault, different things, have been struggling, and get them survivors groups or different things when they come to me, or guide parents or coaches or different things to resources. But I don't have to be their full-time resource.
Yeah.
So I'm opening the conversation so that they can take it to the actual professionals to get them feeling good. Because if they're feeling good, they're going to be less likely to be oppressive to others. Yeah. And I had to learn early on. I went I started, when I first came out, I was going to schools predominantly. Schools were calling me across Canada, and kids were coming to me, and they still do. They're in my DMs, and they're like, I'm self-harming, I want to die, da 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 da. And this happens, like, that's my DMs every day. And I was like, whoa. And it was bringing up all my stuff. So I had to go back to therapy, and I said to my therapist, I said, how do you do this? How do you go home at night and not carry the burden of everyone's shit with you?
Or dump it on your partner, too.
Totally.
Yeah.
You know, and fortunately for my partner, I'm on the road 6 months a year, so he doesn't have to see me.
That's the best relationship, by the way. I'll see you once or twice a year.
Oh, yeah. It's great. And we just got engaged. It's wonderful.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
Congrats. That's
Great
wonderful.
story. It has to do with Elizabeth Taylor randomly, but yeah. Are you listening?
Gladiator. No, I love Elizabeth Taylor.
Well, she got engaged in Toronto. To
Which
Richard
time?
Burden. The first time Richard Burden.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
She ran away from, she married Debbie Reynolds.
Eddie Fisher.
Eddie Fisher.
Girl, trust me on my Elizabeth Taylor. Like, come on.
So my partner's favorite celebrity is Elizabeth Taylor.
So every day at 4 p.m., her Maybach would pull up at the Abbey. They would wheel her out in her wheelchair. She'd sometimes have a
I
flower.
had a drink with her one day in
Yes.
the Abbey. Yeah.
She would have her 2 martinis, dirty martinis, huge martinis, by the way, and every day at 4 p.m. And it was like, it can't be. So if you go to the Abbey now, there's a beautiful picture because, of course, she was doing AIDS advocacy.
And there's a
before
drink on the
anybody
menu
else.
called the Elizabeth
Yeah.
Taylor. Yeah, but she
every day
wanted
at 4
to hang
p.m.
around gay boys.
Yeah.
That's
And you would see her wheel in, and she'd be like, "Oh, Gladiator."
So my partner, we were at a dinner party at a restaurant, and we found out it's where they got engaged.
Oh my gosh!
So I brought him there for his birthday, and I didn't have a ring because he works for Cartier, and I was like, if I go in and get a ring, he's gonna know.
Yeah.
So I called the restaurant. I was like, hey, I need the table they got engaged at, and they gave me the whole room.
That's amazing.
So we're sitting there.
That's another movie moment. Jesus Christ!
So we're sitting there, and there's a picture of them engaged right above us. And he looks at me and goes, I want to get married. We've been together 8 years. And he's like, I want to get married. I'm like, I don't know, Matt. Like, things are so good. Why would we fuck it up with marriage? Like, things are great. Like, let's not move. And the whole time I have a card. And at the end, I hand him the card. And I go, and he ordered a second and a third martini because I kept, like, gaslighting him. And I slide the card over, and he's opening it up, and it says to my husband. And I'm like, sorry, they didn't have a common law card. I just completely gaslit him. And then he's like, he starts opening it up, and there's a piece of paper in it, like printing paper folded up. And he's like, is this tickets to something? And I'm like, just open it. And while he was opening, I snuck around to the other side of the table, and he's unfolding it, and there's the picture of the ring I knew he wanted.
Wow. And
by the time he went, what? And he looked over, and I was on a knee. And yeah, so it was a cool moment, but stuff like that gets me through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like having a supportive partner, having my partner's younger brother passed away a few years ago, and he took a leave from work and life essentially, and he came on the road with me, and he saw it all firsthand. I don't take him on the road anymore because he came to like 5 high schools, and we're sitting there, and every time there'd be a Q&A, kids would ask me, do you have a boyfriend? And I'd be like, yeah, he's sitting over there. And he would like kind of sheepishly wave. And I'd do a little mean greet after, and he'd have a longer line than I would. I'm like, what the fuck, this is my gig. Like, what are you doing?
There goes the attention.
Oh,
right?
yeah. So I'm like, you're not coming anymore. But he goes, Brock, I'm the people's princess. They just... So then he
They were
said
asking
that.
him top or bottom.
Yeah, right.
He said that. Then the next day, the people's princess, the next day, we're sitting there, and same thing, kid asks, and I point at him, and he goes like this. He goes, my jaw hit the floor.
That is funny.
And I was like, are you serious? And sure enough, bigger line again. So now I leave him at home. He's at home with the dog, and I just travel.
Brock, we certainly need to have a follow-up conversation because we could literally talk. I didn't even get to half of these questions. I have to thank you for everything that you're doing. Could use a little bit more thirst traps on Instagram, I'll be honest, but thank you for everything else.
So if you watch my videos, but here's what I do. Because I work, I skew the lines of wanting to be thirst trappy for the gays, and also having to go into rooms with
Of course.
young teenagers where, if they see me as a sexual deviant, I'm not getting in the room. So if you watch the videos and you watch my workouts in the videos,
I have.
They do enough thirst trappy, I think. They could be a little more maybe, but they're thirst trappy enough.
I'm not sure enough is the right word, but like there's some.
There's I give a little tease, just a little taste.
It's like when we were in kids and the adult channel would always be like static and you'd say, I saw a boob! Do you remember?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm giving because I have to make sure that I'm a good boy.
The movie version will be a little bit more explicit.
It better be.
Yeah.
We're getting a movie deal right now? Yeah.
I mean, everything you've said is a movie scene. I'm like, I could like envision
So
it.
if you're watching,
Yeah.
hit me up because we're making a movie.
Yeah.
Brock, it has been an absolute joy.
Yeah,
Can you
thank
tell
you so much.
our audience where they can find and follow you?
Yeah, they can find me on social media. You can find my semi-thirst traps at Brock McGillis 33 on Instagram and TikTok. And my website is brockmcgillis.com, where you can email me if you need to talk or need anything at all.
Every time I say it, I'm going to be Brock McGillis. Like, I just keep wanting to do it, even though that's farthest from you, but it's like, don't do it. And I just
Do it. You can do it. I'm Irish.
Brock McGillis. I did it again.
I'm very Irish, so you can.
Yeah.
Michael, where can people find and follow you and find out more about Out Athlete Fund?
Well, on Instagram, Out Athlete Fund, and I'm Michael.Ferrera. But definitely, encouraging people to go to Out Athlete Fund and get ready for the Olympics in a couple of years. But we're going to start with Pride Houses during World Cup and, between now and the Olympics, trying to build that brand because it is an international movement. And we're trying to blow it up here with the Los Angeles treatment as we do. But it's an incredible movement. And it's going to help what Brock's doing because it's giving more athletes the avenue to come out and be themselves and to meet other athletes so that they have their own safe spaces and inclusion spaces. So, yeah.
Also, I'm expecting an invite to Pride House.
Yes. We're going to talk.
Yes.
Well, that's it, folks. You never know what we're going to talk about because we talk about it all every week here at On the Rocks. Big thank you to our station owner, Tony Sweet, and our lovely intern running our show today. What was your name again? Noah. Loved your arc. Okay. Please like, share, subscribe so we can continue bringing this fabulous show coming your way for free, by the way. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay sexy, and if you drink, stay tipsy. We'll see you next week.
This has been another episode of On the Rocks. Tweet me and slide into my DMs on Twitter and Instagram at On the Rocks On Air. Find everything On the Rocks for free at OnTheRocksRadioshow.com. Subscribe, like, review, and share. Until next week, stay fabulous.